Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we're plunging into, well, a really charged topic that's making headlines again in the UK, the Muslim grooming gang conspiracy. And what's really striking, according to our source material today, is he's apparently involved in its resurgence, figures like Elon Musk. So our focus, our deep dive, is on this one particular source. And it makes a really, really bold claim. It says this whole conspiracy narrative is being, actively pushed by specific groups for specific reasons.
Yeah, it's quite something. The source kicks off with this really provocative idea. It alleges Israel is behind it all, and it frames this through what it calls a propaganda technique, the man in the mirror.
Man in the mirror. How does the source explain that?
Well, according to the source, it's when you falsely accuse your victim of doing exactly what you were doing. The source even states, every Zionist accusation is a confession of an Israeli crime. And just to be clear, it's using Zionists there in its critical framing, referring to supporters of the state of Israel.
Okay, wow. So that's the starting point. Our mission then for you listening is to unpack all of this. It's complex, it's highly charged stuff. We'll dig into the claims, the connections, the source draws, the narratives it builds, just to help you get a clearer picture of what this specific source is alleging. So let's start where the source starts this resurgence. It says the Muslim grooming gang conspiracy is, quote, once again rocking and roiling the United Kingdom right now in 2025. And it defines the conspiracy as these alleged gangs of British Muslim men who allegedly groom and lure underage girls for sex. That's the core allegation it describes. And right away, it brings in Elon Musk. It says he actually called for the UK Home Office minister to be fired. Why? Because she rejected an official inquiry into these alleged gangs.
But then the source immediately presents this counter-information, the official UK view. It states flatly that the inquiry was rejected because, quote, there's absolutely zero evidence to suggest Muslims or Asian migrants are overrepresented in instances of rape and sexual abuse.
Zero evidence, according to that rejection.
Right. And it reinforces this by mentioning a UK Home Office statement from, 4 years ago, which apparently called the whole idea of Muslim grooming gangs a figment of the far-right's imagination. Again, that's according to our sources' reporting of that statement.
Okay, so a direct contradiction there.
And it goes further. It brings in statistics from the UK's Ministry of Justice, trying to add context. It claims that white Brits are responsible for 89% of all sex-related crimes, while making up only 83% of the population.
89%?
Yeah. And it gives an example, the country's most recent sting operation, it says, where 21 white individuals in the West Midlands last year were arrested. So the source uses this data to ask, well, why the intense focus on specific minority groups if this is the statistical picture?
That's a fair question based on the data it presents.
Yeah.
So given those official statements and stats, how does the source then loop back to Elon Musk? What does it claim he's doing?
Well, this is where the source gets quite pointed about Musk. It contends he's using the full power of his $44 billion social media empire to spread and amplify a constant barrage of lies and disinformation. Specifically, to tie Muslims to pedophilia and sexual assault.
And the source connects this to Israel.
Directly. It asserts that this kind of anti-Muslim hysteria helps Israel justify its genocide in Gaza. That's the direct link the source makes.
Okay. So Musk isn't the only one the source points to. It talks about a nexus of far-right personalities. And one name that comes up prominently is Tommy Robinson. The source describes him as a far-right agitator. And it reminds us that Elon Musk apparently called for his release from jail.
Yeah, when Robinson was jailed for contempt of court for repeating false claims against a Syrian Muslim refugee, according to the source.
Right, and the source makes a pretty big claim about his funding.
It does. This is quite a claim. It states it's a proven fact, its words, that Robinson is funded by a consortium of pro-Israel groups to push anti-Islam propaganda.
Proven fact?
Yeah.
Does it say how?
It mentions one Zionist think tank footing the bills for his recent legal troubles. That's the specific example it gives for the funding claim.
Okay. And it gives context for Robinson's views too, right?
Yes, crucial context. It quotes him from just 6 months ago. He apparently called Palestine a shithole full of inbred Islamist parasites and terrorists. That's a direct quote presented in the source.
Grim stuff. So the source is trying to paint a picture of his motivations allegedly linked to this funding. And it digs deeper into the origins of this conspiracy itself.
It references a 2017 investigation, apparently by someone named CJ Werleman. This investigation, the source claims, uncovered a whole network
networks.
Yeah, pro-Israel and far-right organizations that allegedly funneled money to UK think tank Quilliam and its director Majid Nawaz. And the purpose, according to the source, was to push the conspiracy into the mainstream media.
And this is where Robinson comes in again?
Apparently, yes. The source claims Robinson met with the leaders of Quilliam around that time specifically to tie Islam to sexual crimes.
And the source claims this alleged campaign had real-world consequences.
Very serious ones, it alleges. It says the narrative was weaponized in 2019 to incite violence against Muslims in Holland. And it also claims it has incited numerous murderous attacks against Muslims in Britain during the past decade.
Okay, so alleged funding, alleged coordination, alleged real-world violence. That's the picture the source is building around Robinson and others. Given all that, let's circle back to Elon Musk. What more does the source say about his alleged ties to Israel?
Well, this is interesting. The source is very direct here. It states Musk's ties to Israel are, quote, well documented.
Well documented how?
Examples.
It gives two specific examples. First, that he was a special guest of the Israeli prime minister during his address to the United States Congress in July of last year.
Okay, a special guest.
And second, it alleges he traveled to Israel to visit October 7 sites with Netanyahu. The source claims this was to help the Zionist state manufacture consent in the United States for its genocidal operations in Gaza. That's its interpretation of that visit. So, putting all these pieces together, the source suggests something quite speculative, doesn't it?
It does. It poses this idea either Elon is controlled by Zionists or that Mossad has some kind of hold over him or dirt on him.
Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, that's a huge claim.
A huge claim. And the source itself immediately adds the caveat. We have no hard evidence of this.
Right. Important to stress that.
Very. But then it doubles down on its earlier point. What we know for certain is Elon Musk's ties to Israel are well documented. That's the connection it keeps emphasizing.
Okay. So there's another figure the source brings into this alleged network, Douglas Murray, described as a high-profile commentator in the UK.
Yeah, and the source immediately flags his established ties to the Zionist-funded Islamophobia industry. That's the label the source uses.
And his alleged stance.
It claims he built a career on demonizing Muslims in the West while claiming Islam is killing Europe. Pretty strong framing by the source.
Yeah.
And it provides alleged examples. Last year, it says he praised Israel for ignoring Western pleas to end its genocidal campaign in Gaza.
Okay.
And going back further to 2006, it claims he told the Dutch parliament that conditions for Muslims in Europe must be made harder across the board.
Right. And connections to the others.
Yes. The source explicitly links him to Tommy Robinson. Murray apparently praised Robinson back in 2018 for having the courage, Murray's alleged word, to challenge these non-existent Muslim grooming gangs.
And the Musk connection.
Elon Musk has apparently praised Murray as an excellent writer. That's the link the source draws there. So if you take these three, Elon Musk, Tommy Robinson, Douglas Murray, the source presents them as forming, and this is its term, a triangle, a Zionist lobby-funded triangle.
A triangle.
That's the image it uses. And it argues this explains why Murray is now, quote, taking to the airwaves to hype the Muslim grooming gang conspiracy in the UK media again. It connects his current alleged actions back to this supposed network.
Okay, so that's the alleged network pushing the conspiracy, according to the source. But then the source pivots dramatically. It makes what it calls its most shocking claim.
Yeah, this is where it gets extremely controversial.
It alleges Israel is pushing the grooming gang narrative for a very specific ulterior motive.
It claims Israel is desperately trying to change the topic of conversation in the media.
Why?
For two reasons, the source alleges. One, to sabotage solidarity for Palestine. And two, to divert attention away from growing media scrutiny over its global pedophile network.
Its global pedophile network. That's an incredibly serious accusation. What specifics does the source offer to back that up?
All right, so yes, it's a huge claim, and the source does list specific allegations to support it. Again, these are claims from the source. It mentions an Israeli soldier arrested in Colombia for heading a child prostitution ring some years back.
Okay.
It says just 10 days ago, Guatemalan authorities rescued nearly 200 children from a controversial Jewish sect accused of rape, human trafficking, and forced marriage of children.
Gosh.
Then it makes broader claims about Israel itself. It alleges Israel has become a literal safe haven for pedophiles. It even claims that even the Israeli mainstream media has reported how Israel is passing laws that make it easy for Jewish American pedophiles to escape justice in the United States by fleeing to Israel.
Really? The source claims Israeli media reported that.
That's what the source asserts, yes.
Hmm.
And it continues, alleging Israel is the rape capital of the Middle East, claiming underage girls accounting for nearly 50% of reported sexual abuse cases. It also claims 92% of rape investigations are closed without charges laid, and that 75% of convicted sex offenders released from prison early. These are stark figures presented by the source.
These are just devastating statistics, if accurate as the source presents them.
And it doesn't stop there. It brings in Palestinian children. It asserts they bear the brunt of this savagery. It cites one unnamed Israeli human rights group allegedly reporting 69% of detained Palestinian children are stripped naked, and another unnamed group finding that more than 40% are sexually assaulted in one way or another.
This is extremely disturbing material the source is presenting.
Extremely. And it culminates in the assertion that the state of Israel is built on genocide, theft, and rape. Citing claims that Israeli soldiers have raped dozens, possibly hundreds, of Palestinian detainees in Gaza recently, and referencing alleged confessions from former Israeli soldiers about crimes during what it calls the Palestinian genocide of 1948. These are all direct, very grave claims from the source document.
Okay. Deep breath. That's a lot of horrific counter-allegations. So, having laid all that out, the source then uses it to question the credibility of Musk, Robinson, and Murray. It points to what it sees as hypocrisy.
Exactly. It poses the question directly. If Elon is so concerned about child rape and sexual assault, then why does he ignore everything we have just reported here, meaning the allegations against Israel and others?
And it brings up his associations.
Right. It asks, why was he best pals with Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator? And why is best friends with Donald Trump today a man found liable for sexual assault in a court of law? It uses these associations to challenge his stated concerns.
And Tommy Robinson.
The source directs similar scrutiny at him. It alleges that within his own group, the English Defense League, quote, no fewer than 20 of his members have been convicted of child sexual exploitation offenses. And it adds that Robinson himself has allegedly never condemned these convictions within his group.
So the source puts it all together.
Yeah, it asks this overarching question. How can Elon, Tommy, and Douglas be taken seriously about child rape when they defend and evangelize Israel, a state that, according to the source's previous claims, has become a literal safe haven for pedophiles?
That's the core challenge it throws down based on its own reporting.
And it concludes this section with a sweeping statement about what it calls the Zionist lobby's operations in general. It claims, nothing it says or claims is rooted in fact or reality, only fiction, hypocrisy, and deceit.
Strong words.
Very. And it alleges they're spending billions of dollars on social media advertising to sell a positive image of Israel and a negative image of Palestinians, Islam, and Muslims. That's the final claim in this part of the source's argument.
Okay, so we've journeyed through a really dense and frankly quite disturbing source today. What does this deep dive really show us? Well, it demonstrates how one source can construct a very specific, very provocative narrative. It weaves together current events, high-profile figures, historical claims, and some truly shocking allegations into one argument. For you listening, maybe the takeaway isn't just what the source claims, but how it builds its case, how it connects these dots, whether you find those connections convincing or not. It's insight into how certain narratives are constructed.
And the source itself has a call to action, particularly for the media. It stresses the importance that media should, quote, call out and counter Israel's lies, but also those told by its powerful lackeys, including Elon Musk, who has transformed Twitter into an anti-Muslim hate fest in service of the Zionist agenda. That's its explicit demand.
Right, a demand for counter-narrative. So we leave you with this thought. We've seen today how intense and contradictory the information landscape can be, especially around sensitive global issues involving powerful people and politics. Given all that, what stands out to you as the most crucial thing to keep in mind? What's the most critical lens for evaluating information like this, especially when the stakes seem so high? Something to ponder.